Part 9. A Middle School Cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 81. Just when the editorial department held a serialization meeting, many Steel comic fans could not wait to read the latest issue of Steel. The reason why I say I can't wait is because the last issue of Steel had just been serialized and Al was caught by a group of inexplicable people. Although the protagonist of Steel is Edward, as the younger brother, Al is also surprisingly popular, and there are many people who like Al. Ji Yuxiang likes the fighting scenes in Metal very much. After all, when an alchemist is fighting, performing alchemy is like performing magic. Especially when Edward was fighting, he would clap his hands together and release ground stabs when touching the floor, or he could use his right hand to refine weapons such as daggers and daggers. This flexible fighting method made Ji Yuxiang like it very much. After seeing Al being caught in the last chapter, Ji Yuxiang began to look forward to it, because the relationship between the Edward brothers is very deep. If he knew that his brother Al had been captured, with Edward's character, he would definitely work hard to rescue him. Come on, Al. What's more, Edward once said before that Al was stronger than himself, but now Al was easily subdued, which also fully highlighted the enemy's power. Ji Yuxiang was full of expectations. When he flipped through the comics, his hands even trembled with excitement. He opened this issue of Young Junk, skipping many comics, and directly turned to the new chapter of Steel. Refining. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. The battle that Ji Yuxiang was looking forward to has not yet begun. After all, in the last chapter, the enemy just showed up and didn't even say his name. The beginning of this chapter, Steel Refining, reveals the identity of the group that captured Al. This group of people are all synthetic beasts, created by the military using humans and animals. After knowing this fact, not to mention Al being a little surprised, even the impatient Ji Yuxiang was stunned. Army? What kind of existence is the army of this country? Ji Yuxiang was a little stunned, using human lives to refine the Philosopher's Stone, and now they are still conducting human experiments wantonly, and even more frantically refining synthetic beasts of humans and beasts. In this world, there is an underground world hidden in darkness. The leader who captured Al was wearing black sunglasses and a vest. He smiled nonchalantly and showed off the tattoo on the back of his left hand. By the way, I am not a synthetic beast, but an artificial human. This tattoo is. Seeing this tattoo, Ji Yuxiang felt a little familiar. He suddenly thought of something. He put down the comic in his hand, took out the previous issues of the magazine from the bookshelf, and started flipping through it. This is it. Lars. Special, Gradny, and Envy, these people also have tattoos. In other words, people with such tattoos are all artificial beings. Are artificial beings really created by humans? Body. Liar, I've never heard of anyone being able to successfully create an artificial human. In the comic, Al's words were somewhat powerless to fight back, but it confirmed Ji Yuxiang's suspicion. Huh? Is this uncle an android? Ji Yuxiang looked carefully at the man wearing sunglasses, a little confused. Except for the weird tattoo on the back of his hand, he feels almost like a normal person. Could he be lying to Al? Bar. In the comics, a man wearing sunglasses asked his men to smash his head in order to prove that he was an android. Seeing this scene, Ji Yuxiang was a little surprised. It was just to confirm the existence of artificial humans. Is this necessary? This is simply proven by life. This is like dying for once. The man wearing sunglasses raised his thumb, with an evil smile on his face, and said indifferently, "Do you understand? Nothing is impossible in this world. Because I am greed, I am greedy. I want money, beauty, status, reputation, I want everything in this world. Of course I also want eternal life. But I just make it more beautiful. It's just solid, not immortal, so. Ji Yuxiang continued to read the comics and realized why these people wanted to catch Al. When these people saw Al like this, they thought he was the most perfect existence in the world. No need to sleep, no rest, no injury, no hunger or death, they all want to become a being like Al. Because in the eyes of these people, Al's body can be regarded as immortal. Seeing this, Ji Yuxiang felt a little congested. In previous comics, the origin of Al's body has been described in detail. Although it was not mentioned too much in the subsequent comics, Ji Yuxiang knew that Al had endured a lot of pain alone since he had this body. Everyone fell asleep at night, but Al couldn't sleep because of his health. While others were eating and drinking, Al could only watch from the side. At most, he could only write down in a notebook, hoping to taste it after he recovered. Try these delicacies. Al is really sensible. Ji Yuxiang shook his head, admiring Al. If it were me, I would have been tortured long ago, right? Ji Yuxiang felt a little sad when he thought of Al's previous action of wanting to eat apple pie. He didn't have much emotion at the time, but looking back now, he felt that Al was really sensible. Ji Yuxiang, with a heavy mind, flipped through the comics page by page, feeling a little distracted. He just glanced at the dialogue in the comic and did not read it carefully as before, until Edward kicked open the door and came in. Ji Yuxiang regained some energy and began to read comics seriously. What happened next was beyond Ji Yuxiang's expectation. When Ji Yuxiang saw Gleed's tattoo before, he thought he, Rust and the others were in the same group. But when he saw the conversation between Gleed and Edward, he discovered that they were two different groups. Moreover, Gleed nonchalantly boasted Al's armored body as the best body, which made both Edward and Ji Yuxiang, who read the comics, very angry. Convenient. Great. You guys who don't know anything, give you a chance to speak, just talk nonsense here. Edward looked angry, and the expression on his face became a little distorted. The method of fixing the soul, I won't tell you a word. You bad guys must be crushed, kicked, tortured, and your tongues pulled out. Anyway, the benefits are mine, and the bad guys have no equal exchange value. Seeing this, Ji Yuxiang couldn't help but laugh. Although he felt a little heavy because of Al Armor's health before, when he saw Edward's speech like this, Ji Yuxiang couldn't help it anymore. Haha, Edward looks so cute like this. Ji Yuxiang finally got his wish to see Edward fight. Ji Yuxiang nodded unconsciously as he watched Edward kill Gleed's younger brother with one move. As the leader, Gleed's strength was not clear, but if it were Edward, he and his younger brother would have to fight 300 times. If it's around, then this comic will be too boring. Finally, it was time for Gleed and Edward to fight, and Ji Yuxiang watched extremely carefully. Grid can turn himself as hard as diamond, forming the strongest shield. He can also repair his own injuries, and even be resurrected when he is fatally injured. This development made Ji Yuxiang feel helpless. No matter how strong Edward was, he was only a human being. How could he win against such an opponent? Seeing Edward being tortured so miserably, Ji Yuxiang couldn't help but feel worried, but at the same time he sighed in his heart. Fortunately, Glide didn't kill him in order to obtain the method to fix his soul, otherwise Edward would have died long ago. Thank you. Grid held Edward with one hand and forced Edward to tell him how to fix his soul. At this moment, Edward laughed, because the hot blood rushing to the head has drained away, and the brain can move. As expected of my maintenance man, he can still move even though he's like this. Edward clasped his hands together. This posture was a common posture for Edward to perform alchemy. He formed a circle and was ready to activate alchemy. Ji Yuxiang looked forward to seeing the comic plot develop to this point. If Edward did this, it meant that he had figured out how to break through Glid's strongest shield. No, how could it be gone? Turning to the next page, Ji Yuxiang was speechless. The comic ended here. Ji Yuxiang threw the comic to the ground angrily and shouted dissatisfied, "Isn't this a trick? It's obviously the time to fight, but it stopped here. If you want to see the next chapter, you have to read it and wait for a week, my god. The Phoenix Academy is so ferocious, it's so torturous. In fact, this situation is not only encountered by Ji Yuxiang, but also by many readers. Phoenix Academy Jujhen has done this kind of appetizing thing many times. The content of this chapter should be able to successfully initiate change, right? Makoto Takahashi looked at the manga manuscript in his hand and looked at Yoshida with some expectation. After reading this manga, I will become a hero, become an idol, become Ultraman. Oh ha 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 ha. It's hard to say. The evaluation of Higurashi has been going up and down, especially the ending of the Myanryo chapter. Many readers have called to complain. Yoshida looked a little tired. The comic content is bloody and violent, the whole story is full of gloomy style, and at the end of each individual story, the characters are basically wiped out. If I hadn't seen the content of the 2 resolution chapters before, I couldn't help but want to suggest to the editor to cut off Hansekata. Huh. A fool's opinion. My beloved cat, you still haven't made much progress. Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida with disdain, raised the manga manuscript in his hand, and showed a strange smile on his face. Hey hey. The content of this chapter is specially prepared for those children who are suffering. Children are being abused every moment. As the Demon King of Healing Love, I have an obligation to save those who have begun to suffer. The children who are born with dark personalities. Under my guidance, they will become my sword to kill the enemy, become my army to unify the world, and become the most devout believers of my Lord Demon King. Kill the enemies, unify the world, and become the Demon King. Yoshida complained feebly, the goals are getting more and more exaggerated. You are really greedy, Chen. Of course. Because greed is the nature of the devil, Makoto Takahashi shamelessly admitted his greed. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 82. Moshi Moshi, this is the Demon King who heals love, the crazy cartoonist Hao Wing Kyoma. Takahashi Makoto stopped painting, picked up the phone, and after a brief introduction, his tone became a little cold. The one who called a lot before, is it you? If you meet the 3 conditions proposed by the Demon King will naturally fulfill your 3 wishes. Of course, you can choose to refuse or give up halfway, but there is only one chance to fulfill your wish. Now, tell me your wish. He, it seems that I did not dial the wrong number. It is indeed Hao Wing Kyoma's call. The other party gave a sinister smile, and the voice sounded a little weird, as if the gender was deliberately concealed, and it was impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman. Do you know who I am? This voice sounds, could it be you, Yuji? Takahashi Makoto didn't care about the other party's true identity, and completely transformed himself into the president. Is this moment finally here? Humph, Yuji, I have been looking forward to this duel for a long time. While you are still obsessed with the past, I have already stepped into the future. Under the attack of the 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, witness the moment when I become the Duel King. Ha 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 ha. The other party seemed to be shocked by Takahashi Makoto's words. After a long silence, he decisively hung up the phone. Humph. Bastard, are you just going to run away like this? Takahashi Makoto was extremely angry at the other party's non-cooperation. Just when he was about to complain, his phone vibrated again. Seeing that it was the same number calling, Takahashi Makoto hesitated for a moment, but still answered the phone and activated his taunting skill. You are not a game. A real game will not avoid any duel. Humph. Yanushi, you are really a stray dog. The opponent was shocked and attacked again, but the same trick would be greatly reduced when used for the second time. This time, the opponent recovered quickly. How Nkuma, I'm a little tight on money recently, so I want to ask you for some money. Of course you can refuse. What happened this time was just a greeting to you. I hope you can understand through this incident some things. By the way, my account is. What? You're a fraudster. But your fraud level is too low. Do you think you're Kurosaki? Takahashi Makoto hung up the phone unhappily. Looking at Sebastian, who was preparing black tea, he sighed helplessly. Sebastian, add more sugar cubes to the black tea. My train of thought was just interrupted by that suspected fraudster. I need sugar to maintain the magic of my brain. Well, when I go out to buy coffee, I'll collect some information. Leakers and the like should be humanely destroyed as soon as possible. Yes, I understand, young master. Sebastian smiled, bowed slightly, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. It has been a few days since the new issue of Shonen Jump was released. Yoshida was waiting behind the technical statistician early in the morning, waiting for the statistical results. Yoshida was fascinated by the story of Full Metal Alchemist before. He was looking forward to the duel between Edward and Grid. Yoshida decided to wait until the result came out and go directly to Takahashi Makoto to see it first. It's great to be the editor of Shonen Jump, Yoshida sighed while taking the ranking of this issue of comics to look at it. However, this result surprised Yoshida very much. Yoshida rubbed his eyes in disbelief. What's the matter with this ranking? Hey, Mule Yang, could it be that the data is wrong? Huh? Yoshida, don't be kidding. How could such a thing be wrong? Mule Yang looked at Yoshida with some sympathy, and comforted him. Yoshida, you know, I have been doing this job for many years, and I have never made a mistake. There is no problem with the ranking of comics. Even genius cartoonists sometimes fall into a depressed state, which is normal. So, face reality. But Yoshida wanted to say something, holding the statistics sheet tightly with his hands. His face was extremely ugly, but in the end he didn't say anything. Because Yoshida witnessed the whole process of the wooden beam statistics, there was no problem with the statistical ranking, but this ranking. The content of this issue of Higurashi is the end of the Myanliu arc. Because of the large number of character deaths, the ranking will drop. Yoshida has expected this, but the sudden drop to the last place is somewhat beyond Yoshida's expectations. Although Higurashi has a history of ranking plummeting, this situation is really unscientific. What surprised Yoshida the most was the ranking of Full Metal Alchemist, which dropped from the top 3 to the 12th place. This sudden drop is a bit weird. Yoshida looked at this ranking and was full of doubts. The ranking of Full Metal Alchemist would drop, which surprised Yoshida very much. Obviously, the comics have reached the exciting part. How Edward will fight back against Grid is the selling point of this issue. Yoshida, who has been responsible for many comics, can't say that he knows the readers' minds, but at least he can guess some of them. Takahashi Makoto stuck the story of this issue at a critical point. Although this kind of suspense is a bit unfair to readers, it makes readers look forward to the manga and will increase the ranking of the manga. But why did it turn out like this? This matter seems a bit weird no matter how you look at it. Yoshida looked at the ranking statistics in his hand again, his face full of doubts. Why did it suddenly plummet? Especially Steel, it suddenly dropped to 10. The score of 2 is the first time this comic has appeared since it was serialized. I remember that when Hughes died, the ranking also dropped, but... Yoshida, what's going on? The editor-in-chief looked at Yoshida, who looked depressed, and was a little confused. What have you been mumbling about since the beginning? Editor-in-chief, this. Yoshida scratched his head in confusion. Cheng's manga ranking suddenly dropped. Well, it must have plummeted a lot. This kind of thing is a bit abnormal. Especially Steel, it was clear before. Yoshida, the decline in manga rankings is the cartoonist's problem. If the responsibility is really held, then it will be your business as the editor-in-chief. The editor-in-chief waved his hand impatiently. At this time, instead of worrying about it here. The reason for the sudden drop in rankings is that we might as well discuss with the cartoonist how to change the situation. But Yoshida was about to open his mouth to defend, but after coming into contact with the editor's indifferent eyes, his rebellious heart completely melted away and he immediately changed his words. Yes, I know. Now I will go to Aiken's place to discuss with him. Let's take a look at this question. When Yoshida came to Takahashi Makoto's house, he was a little surprised. Takahashi Makoto was the only one at home. Sebastian, who always had a smile on his face, was not at home at the moment. Oh, my familiar cat, you're here. Makoto Takahashi looked back at Yoshida and continued drawing the manga. The manga manuscript has been completed, and it's on the table over there. Today, the assistants are going to draw the brave man. It's a copy. As the assessment instructor, Sebastian will follow and monitor the whole process. For cheaters. Chen. Yoshida looked a little embarrassed. After hesitating for a long time, he gritted his teeth and told the story about the decline in the ranking of the manga. Oh? Is that so? Makoto Takahashi replied in surprise, and then continued drawing comics. Well, I understand. Chen, you. Yoshida was a little surprised. Your reaction to the plummeting ranking seems to be wrong, right? The child has to pee, the wife wants to steal, and the ranking will drop. No one can control these things. So what if I stop drawing? Go to the room and do somersaults. Roll on the floor? I'm just a cartoonist. All I can do is draw. Makoto Takahashi's plain reply made Yoshida doubtful. Is the person in front of him really the Makoto Takahashi he knows? According to Yoshida's expectations, Takahashi Makoto would definitely stand up with a sneer, hold a wooden sword, and issue a declaration such as "Crunt against the editorial department," or mock readers as stupid humans and mortal wisdom cannot understand. After all, it's right to say something like the Demon King's thoughts. But with this kind of reaction now, could it be that Makoto Takahashi became passive because he couldn't stand the stimulation of the plummeting ranking? It's okay, Chen. Yoshida, who was thinking too much, began to kindly comfort Takahashi Makoto. The drop in ranking is just accidental, there is no need to be so negative. As long as the content of the next chapter is published, the ranking will definitely go up. As a demon king, he is calm when things happen, and his expression does not change even when Mount Tai falls in front of him. This is the demeanor of a king. Makoto Takahashi finally stopped the brush in his hand, turned around, and looked at Yoshida with disdain. My beloved cat, you really haven't made any progress at all. I'm very sorry, it took too much time this time, master. Sebastian came in from the door with a bunch of items in his arms, still with a faint smile on his face. Sure enough, just as the master thought, I collected some interesting things. Information. Huh? Have you checked it out? Which side is the other party from Body-Eating Snake, Star Cup Night and Guerrilla Association? Makoto Takahashi looked at Sebastian and shook his head with a smile, frowning a little. Forever, he asked in an uncertain tone, is it the remnant of the cult that has been killed? It's not the organizations that the young master said. Sebastian put down the items in his hands, and after saying a friendly hello to Yoshida, he walked up to Takahashi Makoto and took out a scroll from his arms. The mastermind behind the scenes, it has not been confirmed. There are currently 3 people who are questionable, but the person who leaked the information is. What are you looking at me for? Yoshida was a little confused about the 2 people's actions. By the way, what are you talking about? What kind of leaked information? Hey, Chen, now we are discussing the issue of the decline of your manga ranking. Stop talking about it. What kind of detective espionage game are you playing at this time? The person who leaked the information is an insider of Boyan Junk. Sebastian looked at Yoshida with a smile. Mr. Yoshida is not aware of this matter, so master. I'll leave the explanation to you. Sabas-chan, Makoto Takahashi showed a strange smile on his face. As for those who try to provoke the Demon King, I haven't encountered them in a long time since the purple-haired bastard. Switch. Personality, pattern synchronization. The young master received a strange phone call before. Sebastian began to explain to Yoshida, who looked confused. After the other party confirmed that the young master was the cartoonist Phoenix Institute Murasaki, he asked the young master for money. After the young master refused, he felt something is wrong. Let me investigate some things. By the way, maybe the young master has already predicted the reason for the decline of the comic ranking. Expected it. After listening to Sebastian's explanation, Yoshida was even more confused. How could Cheng have expected it in advance when it only came out today? Don't you understand until now? Takahashi Cheng looked up at Yoshida with an expectant smile on his face. My cat, because I have already felt the hostility brought by the ominous wind. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 83. I wonder how Mr. Kazuma from the Phoenix Institute thinks about my previous proposal. There was still the same insidious voice on the phone. I think Mr. Kazuma from the Phoenix Institute has seen it, right? The Shonen Jump serialization ranking of comics. So what? As soon as Takahashi Makoto said these words, the fashion value suddenly rose to infinity, and the other party was stunned. Humph. You're really tough. The person on the other end of the phone snorted in displeasure without any scruples in his words. Teacher Jujhen of the Phoenix Academy, you must know that this is just the beginning. If you continue to insist on your own way, if you don't realize it, something bad will happen. Oh, I know, Makoto Takahashi sighed helplessly. Just when the other party thought that Makoto Takahashi had compromised, Makoto Takahashi laughed wildly. Ha ha ha, you bastard, even though you are like this you sincerely want to seek death, but His Majesty the Demon King will not agree. In the endless bloody hell, wandering ghosts are wailing. Since you dare to provoke the Demon King, you must have prepared your soul to endure the endless purgatory. Oh, seeing as I'm in a good mood today, I'll just play with you, the ant, for a while. Switch to the true Dark Lord state. Takahashi Makoto didn't give the other party time to answer and hung up the phone decisively. Sebastian saw a gloomy smile on Takahashi Makoto's face. He didn't say anything, but served the black tea respectfully and stood straight to the side. The murderous nature of the Phoenix Academy, I hope you don't regret it. Looking at the phone call that was hung up, Koizumi Taro's expression was a little unnatural. He turned on the computer, and quickly typed on the keyboard with his hands, making a sinister sound in his mouth. Laughter. Since you have chosen the road of death, then I will help you. For the sake of the next generation, we must resist the unscrupulous cartoonist Hohoin Murama. Posted by Taro Koizumi. As a comic lover, I am really heartbroken. Although as a comic critic, I should evaluate every comic from a neutral perspective, but for some comics, especially the comics by the cartoonist Phoenix Institute, I can't do this. Some people may accuse me of dereliction of duty and unfairness, but I don't care. For the sake of the growth of the next generation, I, Taro Koizumi, will accept it. First of all, let's talk about the work DN. When I saw this work, I was really surprised. Why did a work like DN appear? As you readers can see, the Night God in the comics, after obtaining the Death Note, has completely lost his humanity. Because he is bored with the world, he uses the notebook to kill people, and he commits crimes without repentance under the ridiculous banner of creating a world without crime. As the comics progressed, they could even be used by their own relatives and friends. This twisted and erroneous worldview made many readers admire him to the extreme. Who gave Yagamayu the right to take away the lives of others? Can't those who make mistakes be forgiven? There's nothing better than being able to correct mistakes. If things develop like this in the comics, and the people who make mistakes are not given a chance to correct themselves, then this society will be doomed. Let's talk about the work Rebellion. After reading this work, I was really angry. In the comics, Lelouch wanted to subvert the Empire, the country where he was born and raised. In order to rebel against his own country, you don't hesitate to lie and start a war. Phoenix Academy, what do you think of war? The cruelty of war and the loss of life are just a game between father and son. We hate war. It's because we know the cruelty of war and can't let go of the pain of lost lives. But in Rebellion, the male protagonist Lelouch started the war because he had an angry quarrel with his father, treating the war as a game. A farce. This kind of value that regards war as a child's play and human life as trivial is simply harming the next generation. Then there is the recently popular comic Metal. Brother Edward, knowing that resurrecting the dead is a taboo in alchemy, yet he insisted on trying it, and ended up being disabled. At that time, I thought the Phoenix Academy's murderous nature had changed. When I saw Tucker using his daughter and dog to create a synthetic beast, I really couldn't bear it anymore. This kind of comics is completely challenging human nature. Not to mention that in order to refine the Philosopher's Stone, the army captured countless innocent people for alchemy. The army is the protector of a country and protects us, but the comic Phoenix Academy fierce is constantly smearing it. The existence of the military. It makes me really sad to think about the troops who are fighting on the front line and being slandered by an arrogant cartoonist. If things go on like this, who will be willing to join the army and defend the country in the future? The last thing I want to talk about is the comic Han-chan. To be honest, I even doubt that Shonen Jump will agree to serialize this comic. How much money did Phoenix Academy Kuma pay? This comic is compared to the previous ones. The work has completely taken off the last layer of fig leaf. It is bloody and violent. There is only hatred and killing between people. There is absolutely no room for change. Previously, an amateur critic named Muyi Yang was still talking shamelessly on the internet. I really want to scold you ignorant accomplices. Don't you know that such comics will harm the growth of the next generation? As a comic critic, I like comics very much, and I also like to comment on comics. But for some vulgar comics, for some negative and dark comics, I don't agree. I was lucky enough to get a phone call from the Phoenix Institute before. I even called him, trying to persuade him to draw more positive comics, but I was extremely disappointed. Phoenix Academy Jujhen is like a psycho and has no way to communicate normally. I once heard from a friend who worked at Shonen Jump that Phoenix Academy Murderer had created a comic before serializing Steel, but it was rejected by the editor because the theme was too dark and negative. It is said that at that time, the editor-in-chief even came to visit him personally, hoping that the cartoonist Fenyin Ji-zhen would see a psychiatrist and receive treatment. Does anyone know what this news means? That's right, Hohoin Kuma is a person with mental problems. Although he is very talented in comics, such a person is more harmful to society. Hohoin Kuma, a person with some mental problems, how many readers will the drawn comics be serialized in Young Jump? A few years later, the next generation will become the main force in this society. They are unwilling to forgive those who have made mistakes, and regard human life as a plaything. Treating war as a child's play, knowing the taboos but can't help but study them, conducting human experiments again and again, despising and hating the existence of the military, and harboring a rebellious heart towards the country. I can't imagine what that day would be like. Does it really mean that this world has come to an end? So everyone, please work together with me. Let us boycott the unscrupulous cartoonist Phoenix Inferno and let this garbage in the comics industry get out of the comics industry forever. For the comics we love and for our future, for our next generation. Taro Koizumi looked at the post he wrote in one breath, and his face turned red. The more he wrote, the more excited he became. The previous depression had long been gone. Taro Koizumi glanced back and forth, and after confirming that it was correct, he immediately posted it online. I've given you a chance, but you don't cherish it. Taro Koizumi looked at the Shonen Jump at the table with some regret. Obviously I posted a warning to you before, but you, ugh, what a pity, another loss of income. Taro Koizumi, as a comics critic, can be said to be famous in the circle of critics and cartoonists. Unlike other critics, when Taro Koizumi reviews comics, he specifically selects cartoonists whose serialization years are neither too long nor too short. Taro Koizumi is very confident when it comes to commenting on comics, because his sharp words and to-the-point opinions can easily attract the attention of comic fans, thereby affecting readers' understanding of comics, and ultimately beginning to determine the life and death of comics. All along, these are the specialties that he is most proud of. Then Taro Koizumi will use some methods to find the contact information of the original authors of these comics and get in touch with them. For some cartoonists who are aware of current affairs, Taro Koizumi pretends to be a master, gives advice in an instructive tone, and then charges a high fee for the guidance. As for some stubborn cartoonists, Taro Koizumi, after being rejected, began to use his previously published comments to discredit the comics themselves, and even criticized the character of the cartoonists, from the perspective of supreme carelessness. Accuse this comic to the end and destroy this author. This time for Makoto Takahashi, Taro Koizumi did just that. There is no doubt that Takahashi Makoto's manga ranking dropped before because he was secretly causing trouble. Many cartoonists and critics gnashed their teeth in hatred for the way Taro Koizumi did things, but there was nothing they could do about it. Because Taro Koizumi will always find opportunities to establish himself as a glorious image and a partner of justice. In the end, many cartoonists had no choice but to give up the debate and finally gave up, even quitting the cartoon industry and changing careers. But this time the opponent is Makoto Takahashi. Will Taro Koizumi's strategy succeed? A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 84. In the past, when Yuan Shao was planning to attack Sudu and was preparing to declare war on Cao Mend, he asked Chen Lin to make a statement to inform the world to denounce Cao Mend's serious crimes. Cao Mend was suffering from a headache at that time and was ill in bed. He read Chen Lin's statement while lying in bed. I broke out in a cold sweat, and my headache suddenly got better. But Makoto Takahashi looked at the posts on the internet, took off the eye mask and covered his right eye, and found that his left eye was still invisible, and asked Seiba a little depressed. Hey, Sabas-chan, why can't I still see my left eye? It's obvious that even headaches can be cured by the expedition, so why can't it cure blindness? This is not scientific at all. Because the cause of blindness is different from the cause of headache, Sebastian handed over the black tea and said with a smile, of course, the effect may be about the same. But if things continue like this, maybe master. I'll leave that to you. Makoto Takahashi showed disdain in his eyes and a dangerous smile on his face. It's just a chicken and a dog, don't worry about it at all. It's not easy to awaken the mode of the true Dark Lord, this party must be thoroughly enjoyed by me. I understand. Sebastian sounded a little apologetic, took half a step back slightly, and bowed. So, about Mr. Yoshida. Is my companion a cat? This is. Makoto Takahashi rubbed his head unhappily. Forget it, for the sake of his hard work over the years, let's call him to this party. Sabas-chan, it's almost time, right? It's time for that guy to arrive, right? There are still 5 minutes until the agreed time. Sebastian took out the pocket watch in his coat pocket and looked at it. Master, let me prepare tea first. Well, I'll leave it to you, Sebastian. Makoto Takahashi complained helplessly. Really, when doing things, I don't arrive late or arrive early. It's unpleasant to be on time. It's really unpleasant. That guy. If possible, I really don't want to cooperate with that guy. Just when Takahashi Makoto kept complaining, there was a knock on the door. Takahashi Makoto looked at the clock on the wall and frowned unhappily. That guy really arrived at the appointed time. Just when Makoto Takahashi was discussing with someone, Taro Koizumi posted this post on the internet, and its influence spread to a ferocious level. Taro Koizumi posted on the internet calling on comic readers to crusade against the murderous nature of the Phoenix Academy, and the momentum is getting bigger and bigger. Some experts and professors could not bear to be lonely. They responded to Taro Koizumi's call and joined the crusade not only through the internet, but also through many media such as TV programs and newspapers. Cartoons like that, as Mr. Koizumi said, will indeed affect the physical and mental health of teenagers. On a variety show talk show, Professor Yang faced many media and talked with great concern for the country and the people. With a pained look on his face, I think that cartoonist Phoenix Inferno should stop drawing cartoons immediately and go to the hospital for treatment. The people who drew these cartoons must have a lot of psychological or mental problems. As a normal person, I should spread more positive energy, but from the vicious comics of Phoenix Academy, what I see and feel are completely dark and negative existences. Blood, killing, war, violence, these things should be kept away from young people. This is not something they should be exposed to at this age. Therefore, I support Mr. Taro Koizumi's point of view and call on everyone to boycott the fierce comics of Phoenix Academy. I am doing this entirely for our sake. Think about the next generation and the future of our country. Resist the murder of Phoenix Court, for the sake of the next generation. This is the front page of an entertainment newspaper in Gukko. For the sake of the physical and mental health of the next generation, please stay away from the evil of Phoenix Academy. The front pages of some small newspapers carried similar content. They cut and pieced together the words of some experts and professors, and under the slogan "For the Next Generation," they continued to smear and slander the Phoenix Academy. This is gaining momentum. The harder it goes, it's like eating suanmei, you can't stop. Once you do something with a noble purpose and stand on the basis of righteousness, even nonsense will sound very reasonable and be easily accepted by people. This approach is exactly what these lonely professors and experts like to do best and are best at doing it. Asshole, these reports are complete nonsense, Yoshida angrily threw the newspaper he just bought on the table. These guys are talking complete nonsense. If this continues, I wonder if Aiken can't bear it. They are indeed a bunch of bastards. Yujiro picked up the newspaper, his face became very angry, and shouted loudly, "If there is a problem with the comics, just talk about the problems with the comics." These experts and professors also involved the topic of the author himself, doubting what kind of logic is this about the author's spiritual use. "Yoshida, do you still have time to talk about this here?" The editor's voice suddenly sounded, making Yujiro and Yoshida startled and stopped the discussion. The editor-in-chief looked at Yoshida and scolded him coldly, "You should rush to Takahashi Makoto's place right now." "Editor-in-chief, are you?" Yoshida looked at the gloomy editor-in-chief and asked with some worry, "Are you planning to let Cheng stop serializing temporarily?" "Humph. As long as the comics are interesting, they can be serialized if they are interesting. Steel and Hanging, I have always found them very interesting." The editor's tone softened a little. Looking at Yoshida, who breathed a sigh of relief, the editor's eyes changed. His tone became stern. "What you have to do now is not to complain about these boring comments, but to go to Takahashi Makoto's house and comfort him. Even if he is a genius cartoonist, he is still just a child after all. Don't forget, people's words are terrible." When Yoshida arrived at Makoto Takahashi's home panting, he found Makoto Takahashi smiling and playing chess with a man. That man looked familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. "My beloved cat, you escaped into the barrier in such a panic, are you really being hunted?" Makoto Takahashi played with the black chess piece in his hand, with a disdainful smile on his face. "Didn't you tell me before?" "Many times, Don't go out in broad daylight. You are a vampire. If you appear openly in a crowded place, you will easily be discovered and hunted down by the lackeys of the church. Yeah, I'm really stupid. Yoshida sat helplessly on the ground, giving up on himself. I'm just a fool. I'm just a fool. Chen, you are a severe patient with Shuyunibu. You are just a rumor. Why? Maybe it will hit you. Ah, why am I working so hard to come here? I am such a fool. If you can realize your own stupidity, it seems that you can still save it. Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida sitting on the ground, with a dangerous smile on his face. Hey, my beloved cat, you really know how to choose. It's time. Welcome to this party. Are you ready? What are you getting ready for? What's going on at the party? Yoshida looked at the smile on Takahashi Cheng's face and took a few steps back unconsciously. What do you want to do, Cheng? Why are you looking at the smile on your face? Reminds me of some unpleasant things. Then, Mr. Chen Ben, proceed as you said before. Makoto Takahashi did not answer Yoshida's words, but looked across at Chen Ben, who was thinking about the next move, and said with a smile, don't think about it. La, no matter what the next step is, failure has become a foregone conclusion, and this situation is irreversible. Alas, Chen Ben sighed with some disappointment. Failed again? Well, let's decide like this. Although it is a pity that this time, the goal was not completely achieved, but it was not in vain. It's not a small gain. Having said that, if Mr. Takahashi Makoto doesn't plan to draw comics in the future, you can work with me at Daihi Club. I'm really looking forward to working with you. It's a pity that you don't want to give up your identity as a human after all. Makoto Takahashi sighed with regret. If not, it would be so easy for you and I to work together to unify the world and dominate the three realms. Mr. Yoshida must be here to appease Mr. Kuma from the Phoenix Institute, right? Although I really want to say that the timing is a bit unlucky, Mr. Makoto Takahashi seems to want you to join this party. Chen Ben stood up and smiled. Then he said hello to Yoshida. Haha, then I won't disturb you anymore. Mr. Chen Ben, don't forget the previous agreement. Makoto Takahashi looked at Chen Ben, who was about to walk out of the room, with a wicked smile on his face. What Sebastian gave you before, you need to get it done as soon as possible. You know, Sebastian consumes a lot of record gems to collect this information. Hey. I will definitely remember it. Chen Ben shook his head helplessly. The first step will be completed tomorrow. The rest will be left to you, Takahashi. No, it should be the fierce teacher of Phoenix Academy. Sebastian, please send Mr. Chen Ben away. If possible, recruit him again. The Demon King's intuition tells me that such a person will become the Demon King's most powerful general, Makoto Takahashi said as he spoke, while turning to look at Yoshida. As for my familiar cat, let me explain something first. If you bring a pet cat that doesn't understand etiquette to a party in the future, people will laugh at the Demon King. It's in bad style. So, what's going on at the party? Yoshida waited until only Takahashi Makotoki and himself were left in the room, and finally couldn't help but ask, what were you and Mr. Chen Ben discussing before? Is it about the negative comments now? Oh? Three-stage continuous question? Have you finally mastered this skill? With this, are you finally going to become a familiar? Well, it's really good. When attending a party, instead of bringing a pet cat, why don't you bring a familiar? Makoto Takahashi looked at Yoshida, a strange light flashed in his right eye. As for that interesting party, it's just entertainment in the devil's spare time. You can just look forward to it with peace of mind. Now, don't worry about the rest. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 85. Hey, Kairan, do you still have time to surf the internet? Have you thought about the content of the comic? Landai stopped the brush in his hand, looked at the dull-looking man with yellow hair and glasses, and complained with some dissatisfaction, "Before, Hong Kong Mr. Pu has already said that suspicious detective is a bit dangerous now. Why don't you, Chi Ren, are you listening? What are you watching, so absorbed? Supreme, come here and take a look." Mr. Huang Mao and glasses suddenly stood up from his seat, his tone a little hurried. "I'll call Mr. Gang Pu first. You finish reading this first, and then we go to Cheng's house." "What's wrong with Cheng? Has it been in the news?" Lan Dai walked to the computer with some doubts, but when he saw the content on the web page, he was stunned and read in disbelief. "Boycott the cartoonist Phoenix Academy, really? Hey, what did Aiken do? Is he mentally ill? What a joke. At best, Aiken is just a middle-aged man." "Well, thank you Mr. Gang Pu, I understand." Mr. Huang Mao and glasses hung up the phone, walked to Lan Dai's side, looked at Lan Dai with a confused face, sighed, and said slowly, "We have confirmed with the Hong Kong and PU editor that Cheng's comics have been deliberately misinterpreted. The phone number in the editorial department has been buzzing. Now let's go to Cheng's house first. The Hong Kong and PU editor asked us to go and take a look at Cheng. I don't know about Aiken." Lan Dai looked a little worried. If this kind of thing happened to him, he would definitely not be able to bear it. Recalling the increasing amount of abuse on the internet, Lan Dai hesitantly asked his partner, "Hey, Chi Ren, do you think Aiken can?" "Probably not." The yellow-haired glasses guy knew what his good partner was going to ask, so he knocked hard on the door of Makoto Takahashi's house and gave his guess. "According to Cheng's character, for these things, I'll definitely say it without any hesitation. What a bunch of ridiculous clowns. As for stopping drawing comics, Cheng wouldn't do that." "Haha, I hope so." Lan Dai laughed dryly, and when he was about to say something, Takahashi Cheng's door opened. Lan Dai and the yellow-haired glasses man looked at each other and began to think about how to comfort Takahashi Makoto when they saw him later. However, when they entered the room, what they saw was Takahashi Makoto sitting at the table. He was drawing comics seriously, and he didn't even notice the arrival of the two people. "Master, Mr. Takagi and Mr. Sincerity are here." Sebastian motioned for the two of them to sit on the sofa, then walked behind Makoto Takahashi and said softly, "Master, this is a bit rude to the visiting guests." Alas, Makoto Takahashi sighed, stopped painting, turned around, squatted on the chair, looked at the two people on the sofa who looked a little embarrassed, snorted coldly, and curled his lips in displeasure. "Are you free? Don't think that you can run around the world after leaving the novice village. If you want to clear the Demon King dungeon, you should first level up and buy equipment. You can't even break the defense now." After the two good friends looked at each other, Lan Dai asked hesitantly, Cheng, will you stop serializing comics?" "Yes," Makoto Takahashi replied nonchalantly, making the two of them look a little ugly. Takahashi Makoto didn't pay attention to the expressions of the two of them. Instead, he teased Liulai in his arms. The atmosphere was a bit depressing for a moment. When Lan Dai finally couldn't help it and wanted to speak, Takahashi Makoto raised his head and looked at the two of them said, "In about 500 years, if I don't meet Fairy Zixia and change my job to become the Monkey King, I will give up comics." Listening to Makoto Takahashi's answer, although the good friends duo were a little angry, they had smiles on their faces. It seems that Takahashi Makoto has not been hit too hard, and Chuyuni's madness is still spreading unscrupulously. "By the way, your current situation is not good." Makoto Takahashi looked at the two of them with a sinister smile, with an indifferent expression on his face. "Is this really good? Rather than being a hypocrite and worrying about others with good intentions, you might as well imagine your own affairs. Unlike His Majesty the Demon King, you two are creating a comic, and you need to spend time communicating. Is this really a waste of time? Tisk, Tisk, Adusan is 40 years old. Marry someone. How could it be possible to wait a minute, why do you know about this? Landai's face turned crimson, and he looked at Makoto Takahashi with some confusion. Akito shouldn't tell you this. Humph. The wisdom of mortals. Takahashi Makoto had a bad smile on his face, picked up the phone from the table and shook it. Landai, are you underestimating His Majesty the Demon King's intelligence network? Your Highness the Princess you told me everything. Even how many times you send text messages to Yudo-san every day. Chiren, let's go back and draw comics. Landai stood up angrily. Zhong'er is right, coming to visit him is really a waste of time. Drawing comics well now is what we should do. Well, that's right. Makoto Takahashi looked at the two people who were about to leave, with a smile on his face, although it's a bit regretful that I can't invite you to this party. But it doesn't matter, there will be a feast afterwards. But, can you hold on until then? There are already 4 people qualified to participate in the feast. Humph, we will definitely participate in the feast. The sadness in Landai's eyes disappeared fleetingly, and a determined look appeared on his face. Not only must we participate, but we must also defeat you, who is in second place, and classmate Zizi, who is now the first place. Good fighting spirit. Good awareness. But, there is still a lack of strength. Takahashi Makoto turned around, picked up the brush and continued to draw comics. I am proud of the world. When will you arrive at my feet? After sending away Yachin Mumenjai and the others, Takahashi Makoto continued to draw comics. Many people called before. Princess Rina was the first to call, and even wanted to come to Takahashi Makoto's house, but was rejected by Takahashi Makoto. Then came the silver-haired brother, the king of Black Flame, Uncle Nakai, and the beautiful big sister Aoki Hong. As for the little otter, he came to visit Takahashi Makoto in person, but was caught by Yoshida, who was present, and dragged back for re-education. To be honest, I am a little upset. I could have taken advantage of this opportunity to kill the Black Flame King in one fell swoop, but that Taro Ant ruined the situation. All the preparations before were in vain, and the Black Flame King summoned new reinforcements. After complaining for a while, Takahashi Makoto continued to draw comics and asked casually, Sebastian, according to the previous plan, how long will this party take? If the plan goes well, it should only take a week, Sebastian gave an answer after a brief calculation. According to your instructions, those things were handed over to many organizations in addition to the Oga Society. 1 week, Takahashi Makoto repeated with some dissatisfaction, and suddenly remembered the readers who had always supported him. How are the arrangements for my believers? As believers of the Demon King, the greatness of the Demon King will be demonstrated through miracles. Only in this way can they be more pious. As for the readers, the results cannot be accurately predicted, but... Sebastian paused, with a confident smile on his face. Although there are too many people to confirm, the news has been released. Well, in this case, Sebastian, let's look forward to the party together. Takahashi Makoto drew a heavy stroke on the manuscript paper, with an expectant smile on his face. For the news of boycotting Hao Winkyoma that appeared on the internet before, many of Hao Winkyoma's loyal fans were extremely angry and launched a fierce counterattack. However, due to the lack of organization and command, the fans of Feng Guangyuan Xiongzhen fell into a disadvantage over time, and the joining of those experts and professors later made the situation of the fans even worse, which made Mu Yiyang, who temporarily became the commander-in-chief, extremely headache. In the internal communication group, several people were communicating. They were all the most hardcore fans of Feng Guangyuan Xiongzhen. Is there no way out? The other party is really full of tricks. The war launched on the internet has also involved the media in reality. Our foundation is only on the internet, and there is no reinforcement in reality. If this goes on. Mu Yiyang. I don't know if you have noticed that this matter seems to have been planned long ago. It was aimed at Feng Guangyuan Xiongzhen from the beginning. Feng Guangai Yuan Zhengxuan. It's too late to say this now. What I am most worried about now is whether Feng Guangai Yuan Xiongzhen will be affected and stop serializing comics. Maybe this result is the other party's purpose? What is the hatred and grudge? Why is it like this? Kaojin Feng Guangai Yuan Kuma. Kuma Feng Guangai Yuan. There were rumors about Taro Koizumi before. It is said that he extorted high fees by blackmailing cartoonists and cartoonists' comics. For those who do not cooperate, that scumbag will destroy the cartoonists and comics in this way. Although I know these things, I don't have any evidence, so there is nothing I can do. Lelich of Feng Guangai Yuan. Forget it, this kind of thing, even if it is announced now, it will not have any effect, but will make us more at fault. Mu Yi Yang. Yang Wei looked at the internal communication information, but he was desperate. He knew that everything was Koizumi Taro's trick behind the scenes, but he had no evidence. Moreover, he has been on the internet for many years, and he knows very well that if this information is announced now, he will definitely fall into the trap set by Koizumi Taro, the scumbag, and turn the disadvantageous situation into a real desperate situation. Are you my agent in this world, Bishop Mu Yi Yang? The inexplicable words came from the other end of the phone, which made Yang Wei stunned. What is my agent in the world? When did he become a bishop? I use the pseudonym Mu Yi Yang online, so few people should know about this. And how did the other party know his phone number? Yang Wei was full of doubts. When he was about to ask, the other party told him a surprising news. Lost lamb, don't be confused, don't doubt. His Majesty the Demon King feels your sincerity and breaks the seal to communicate with you. On the other side of the phone, Takahashi Makoto heard the other party's somewhat rapid breathing, and his middle school aura was fully open. That's right, I am the Demon King who heals love, a crazy cartoonist, and my name is Feng Guangai Yuan Kuma. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 86. The name Phoenix Academy murderer has been mentioned many times recently. Many experts and professors have mentioned this name more than once on some variety talk shows. Although many people have expressed their grievances for Phoenix Academy murderer, now headed by Koizumi Taro, the opposition has all the advantages, and the party that slanders has more people. Everyone is curious. For many people who don't know the Phoenix Institute's murder, when they see things developing so fiercely, they start to inquire about the causes and consequences of all this. Then they learn the name of the Phoenix Institute's murder, and then start to follow his comics. In the end, many people became his fans. Although Takahashi Makoto is a little reluctant to admit this kind of thing, through Koizumi Taro's commotion, Phoenix Academy murder and its comics have indeed gained many fans. Today is the day when Rebel is broadcast. Due to the influence of rumors some time ago, more people are in front of the TV, ready to watch this animation seriously. Many people come here out of curiosity. They want to see how cruel the animation adapted from the comic that caused the dispute is. Regarding those comments on the internet, Yoda Ueda was dismissive and still supported Phoenix Academy murder. In his opinion, the cartoons of Mr. Kyomasa from the Phoenix Institute have very novel perspectives and characters, and the lines in the comics are quite cool. When Yoda Ueda learned that Rebellion was being animated, he was so happy that he didn't sleep all night. You know, Yoda Ueda's favorite manga is Rebellion. As usual, after finishing his meal, Ueda Yoda stayed in front of the TV, waiting for the new episode of Rebellion. But today, Yoda Ueda's father didn't let him watch Rebellion. Yoda, didn't I tell you before? I won't let you read any more comics about the Phoenix Academy's murderous crimes. Daiichi Ueda angrily changed the channel, not even for anime. Don't show such an expression. I do this for your own good. Although Dad and I are busy at work, I also hope that my Ueda children can grow up healthily, and I don't want to be influenced by some bad comics and animations and go astray. Then I should be allowed to watch Rebellion. Ueda Yuta felt his father's stern gaze. He did not shrink back and be weak as usual, but looked at his father seriously. Those comments on the internet are all nonsense. Rebellion has finally been animated. As a loyal comic fan, I want to support it. What's more, the comments on the internet are only superficial. The connotation of Phoenix Academy's work is based on those people. The wisdom is incomprehensible. Ueda Daichi looked at his son, silent, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. You must know that Yuta Ueda usually has a very cowardly character. If he speaks in a slightly harsher tone, he will become timid, but today, actually. Okay, let me watch Rebellion with you. Although I haven't watched it before, just listening to all kinds of negative comments, but let's see it for ourselves today. Oh, thank you, Dad. Ueda Yuta was very happy. Just when he was about to say something, he heard the opening song of Rebel and immediately started watching TV seriously. Ueda Daichi next to him shook his head helplessly and also watching TV with my son. This episode of Rebellion tells the story of Suzaku who was bullied and alienated because of his identity after entering school. This scene made Ueda Daichi frown a little. This kind of thing has happened in reality. However, Ueda Daichi didn't say anything. Instead, he was a little suspicious of the comments on the internet. Didn't Rebellion use comics to point out things in reality? How can we promote bad ideas? This thought just passed by for a moment. Ueda Daichi didn't say anything, but looked at it seriously. An animation episode is not long, it has been played for 20 minutes, which indicates that the animation is coming to an end. Seeing that Suzaku began to be accepted by the people around him because of saving Lelich, and even joined the student union, Ueda Daichi's brows did not relax, but frowned even tighter. Now he is very confused. This kind of animation does not look as exaggerated as what is said on the internet. Although Ueda Daichi doesn't know why the male protagonist Lelich cares so much about the mask, the story in this episode will not affect the physical and mental health of the child as said on the internet. Seeing his son watching the animation obsessively, Ueda Daichi didn't quite understand. In his opinion, this episode of animation only tells about school life. It does not have any negative thoughts, but at the same time, it is not very outstanding. Why is his son Yuta Ueda watching it like crazy? Drunk. Just when Ueda Daichi was about to speak, the music in the animation suddenly changed and became magnificent, and the scene suddenly turned to the school auditorium, where the students were gathered together, as if someone important was preparing, just like giving a speech. Seeing the excited look on Ueda Yuta's face, Ueda Daichi was a little puzzled. Isn't it said that children hate school leaders' speeches the most? Have you lost touch with this era? The 98th Emperor of Holy Britannia. Looking at the middle-aged man with white curly hair who suddenly appeared in the picture, Ueda Daichi suddenly became energetic. This man briefly appeared at the beginning of the animation. It turned out that he was the Emperor of Britannia. Does the king give a lecture to students? Ueda Daichi looked at the majestic emperor, with a hint of expectation in his eyes. People are not equal. People who are born to run fast, beautiful people, people with poor parents, people with diseases, birth, growth, talents, all human beings are different. Yes, people are meant to be discriminated against and existence. So people fight and compete with each other, resulting in the replacement of old and new. So inequality is not evil, but equality is evil. As soon as this declaration came out, Ueda Daichi was shocked. As the company's management, I have a different understanding of these words. Similarly, in the company, some people do more things, and some people do less things, but receive the same salary. If this development continues, people will only become lazier, and the company will also gradually towards decline. Although we know that some principles in society are wrong, society itself operates according to these principles. Our Britannia is not like this. Struggle and competition have begun to evolve. Only Britannia is moving towards the future. The death of her lonely son Kurovis is the reason why Britannia continues to evolve. Prove it. Fight, plunder, acquire, dominate, and the result will shape the future. Honor to me, Britannia. After hearing this, Ueda Daichi nodded with satisfaction. His Majesty the Emperor was very successful in portraying him as ruthless, indifferent, and cruel. The royal family has no family affection. For his dead son, the Emperor only thought that he failed in the competition and had no sympathy or mercy at all. Instead, he took the opportunity to promote his domineering ideas. He was worthy of being the emperor of a big country. However, such a declaration seems a bit, regarding the comments that appeared on the internet. Ueda Daichi suddenly understood a little bit. These things may be a little too early for children, right? Turning to look at his son, Ueda Daichi shook his head and rejected his idea. This is fine, let the children be exposed to these things too early, at least they won't be in the future. Hey, Dad, now is the time to witness the miracle. Yoda Ueda suddenly pointed at the TV and said with excitement, let me show you how powerful the Phoenix Academy is. Ueda Daichi looked at the TV with some confusion and found that the animation had ended and the ending credits were playing. Suddenly, Ueda Daichi saw the miracle from his son's mouth, and the fierce name of Phoenix Academy began to flood the screen fiercely. Anything related to music, arrangement, lyrics, except for the singer, all have the fierce name of Phoenix Academy. Phoenix and fierce, if they are really the same person, that would be really awesome. Ueda Daichi sighed with emotion. He also participated in the school band during his college days and knew how difficult it is to arrange music and write lyrics. To be able to draw such an outstanding painting, his comics can also write these kinds of music. Task tisk tisk, this Phoenix Academy is really vicious. Just when Ueda and his son were sighing, after the animation ended, the TV screen suddenly turned white, and a huge door appeared in it. Looking at this door with a strong metal texture, Ueda Daichi was a little confused, but Ueda Yoda on the side exclaimed, this is the door of truth. No way, has full steel been animated? What is the gate of truth? Oh, forget it. Ueda Daichi wanted to ask his son, but looking at Ueda Yoda who was in a frenzy, he knew that it was useless to say anything now, so he could only watch with curiosity. The huge door slowly opened, and a boy with an eye patch on the left side of his face slowly walked out. Looking at the boy who appeared on the TV, Ueda Daichi's heart suddenly jumped. Could it be that this boy who was about the same age as his son was the Phoenix Institute? You who are wandering and lost, long for me and pray to me. Ha 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 ha. The boy walked to the door, crossed his legs, his right eye flashed red, looked at the audience in front of the TV, and laughed wildly. Get up, as you can see, there is no mistake. I am the existence that you call the world, or the universe, or God, or the truth, or the whole, or the one, and he is His Majesty the Demon King who heals love, the maniacal cartoonist, the Phoenix Academy murderer. This is not an illusion, nor a lie. Makoto Takahashi suddenly stood up, pulled out the wooden sword from his waist, pointed the sword to the sky, and fully activated his aura, facing the ants who dare to challenge me. Have you ever seen the sharp sword in my hand? Have you ever feared the power of heaven and earth? Have you ever noticed the wrath of the devil? I hereby declare that those who practice falsification and charlatanry, despair, regret, tremble. Makoto Takahashi changed his face to a serious expression. Master the truth and know the cause and effect. I will become a partner of justice, Justice Knight, eliminate heretics, and judge sins. If you want to ask why, I will answer that there is only one truth, and justice will prevail. When the Demon King's party is held, you and Xiao Xiao will be defeated. In the TV screen, Makoto Takahashi showed disdain on his face, and slashed down the wooden sword in his hand. The special effects were very coordinated, and the screen was completely destroyed. Into broken glass, and then into darkness. Bury the Fool, The Devil's Party. This Saturday's topic interview, The Murderous Truth of the Phoenix Academy, will be with you. The white subtitles are very eye-catching. Although it is just a preview of an interview program, it has also made many people curious. It seems that there are many inside stories about what happened before. Maybe things will become more and more interesting. Ueda Daiichi looked at the program preview with an expectant smile on his face. On Saturday, you must take time to watch this topic interview program. Yuta, do you want to watch it then? Dad will watch this program with you then. Oh, really? Ueda Yuta looked at his father with some surprise, with a surprised smile on his face. Look, you must watch it. See how the great master Howin Kishin, the Demon King, fights back against those bastards. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist. Male. Chapter 87. Topic interview is an interview program, led by special host Haruka Sato, and interviews and communicates with the interviewees. The main interviewees are generally the parties involved in some recent hot events. For example, the interviewee this time is the cartoonist, Howin Kuma, who has attracted social attention because of his comics. The negative reviews circulated on the internet before not only affected Takahashi Makoto's comics, but also Taigasa. Many parents who did not know the truth called to complain and hoped to stop broadcasting the animation rebellion. The reason was that Howin Kuma's comics were not good for the physical and mental health of children. Taigasa is an old animation production company. For some things in the comics circle, as long as there is any wind and grass movement, everything that happened behind the scenes is almost mastered. Taigasa noticed the smear campaign against Howin Kuma from the beginning, but they did not take any measures, but let these rumors spread on their own. Although it is negative hype, it can also increase the popularity of rebellion after all. But in just a few days, the spread of rumors has reached a rather exaggerated level. This situation was somewhat beyond the expectations of the Okawa company, because if it continued to develop like this, rebellion might be suspended due to pressure. If rebellion was suspended, the material and financial resources previously invested by the Okawa company would be completely wasted, and this was not what the Okawa company wanted to see. So under the matchmaking of the Okawa company, Takahashi Makoto became the interviewee of this week's topic interview. Mr. Takahashi Makoto, everything has been arranged on our side. Chenben looked a little tired, but his smile was the same as usual. As mentioned before, we have completed the first step, and next it will be your performance time. No problem, leave it to me next. Heroes and demons are the same, they all appear at the most critical moment. Takahashi Makoto secretly looked at the studio backstage and found that it was full of people. Takahashi Makoto turned to look at Chenben and said unhappily, although I hate the commercial smile on your face, I have to say that you are really efficient. I'm really sorry. Chenben heard Takahashi Makoto's words, and the smile on his face did not change at all. Instead, he looked at his watch. Well, it's almost time. Takahashi Makoto, no, Fengguangai Yuan Kuma, everything is up to you. The triumphant song is playing, we raise our swords and cheer, the beauty and the wine, we raise our cups and drink, just because the enemy is defeated, just because we are invincible. After saying this, Takahashi Makoto took a deep breath, gently stroked the eye mask on the left side of his face, and suddenly opened his right eye. The target is determined, the clearing operation begins, the unparalleled mode is turned on, the word spirit technique is adjusted to the current highest state. And the enemy annihilation mode is switched, Fengguangai Yuan Kuma, attack. Yoshida and the little sea otter sat in the audience, waiting for the show to start. The same waiting, the two people's performance is indeed completely opposite. Yoshida put his hands together, closed his eyes, and prayed silently. His expression was full of worry and anxiety, while the little otter looked around excitedly. For the women in his sight, his eyes would stay for more than a minute. "Mr. Yoshida, what are you praying for?" The little otter saw the lights getting brighter and knew that the show was about to start, so he stopped looking around and whispered in Yoshida's ear, "By the way, I saw a lot of beautiful ladies today. I wonder if I can." "Here American, your comics are not finished yet." Yoshida stopped praying and looked at Yoshida with a gloomy face. "Don't think I don't know what you are thinking. Do you think you don't have to draw comics by participating in this show today?" "Humph. Recently, because Aiken is busy with things, do you have the illusion that you can be lazy? You should know that all your whereabouts are under my control. I was thinking about the comic storyboards to be drawn tonight." The little otter looked like he was hit on the heart, and his rebuttal was completely pale and powerless. Seeing the smile on Yoshida's face, the little sea otter swallowed unconsciously and immediately changed the subject. "The readers of Sea Otter must be looking forward to it. It must be like this, Mr. Yoshida. What were you praying for just now?" "Humph. I hope so." Yoshida's face turned a little ugly when he heard the little sea otter mention this. "I hope my previous guess is wrong. In this kind of occasion, Chang should not behave." After the host Haruka Sato finished the introduction, Makoto Takahashi wore an eye mask, a set of blue ancient general armor, and a crescent helmet on his head. After watching Makoto Takahashi dress up and slowly walk out from the backstage, Yoshida had already anticipated what would happen next. Crescent-shaped helmet and one eye, could this outfit be Oshu One-Eyed Dragon Date Masamune? "Common people, bow down to me. This time, I will make you understand that the sin of betraying the king of the demon's followers cannot be forgiven even after death." Takahashi Makoto walked to the seat, spread out the cloak behind him, and sat down with a big horse and a golden sword. "There is no one before, and there will be no one after. That's right, I am the devil who heals love, the crazy cartoonist, and Fengguangai Yuan Kyoma." With a slap sound, Yoshida slapped his forehead hard with his hand, covering his eyes. Such shameless and extremely shameless lines can only be said by Takahashi Makoto, a guy in the late stage of Shuyunibu, on a live TV show. If it were me, Yoshida would sweat coldly just thinking about it. This. Although Chenben had already greeted Sato Haruka before, seeing Takahashi Makoto's overflowing start, Sato Haruka finally understood the sympathy in Chenben's eyes. After gathering his thoughts, Sato Haruka tried to lead the interview on the right track. "Ahaha, Phoenix Academy Kuma-sensei really has a personality. I guess being able to draw those outstanding comics is also related to Phoenix Academy teachers' mentality, right? Big sister." Makoto Takahashi looked at Haruka Sato, without the slightest trace of embarrassment on his face. Instead, he stepped back with a look of caution. "Don't have any covetous intentions towards me. I have become a knight. I declare that I will dedicate everything in this life to my princess." The audience in the audience burst into laughter, and some even whistled, but Sato Haruka's face turned crimson, and his eyes were fixed on Takahashi Makoto. If the situation was not wrong, Sato Haruka would definitely go up and slap Takahashi Seiki hard. Dayton. Everyone must be aware of the recent comics about Mr. Kuma from the Phoenix Academy, right? Sato Haruka is a professional host, and his emotional self-control ability is very good. In the blink of an eye, a sweet smile appeared on his face again. "Today in our topic interview, let's talk about this matter. But before that, I think everyone is as curious as me, what is the real name of teacher Ji Zhen of the Phoenix Academy? And this retro outfit, are you imitating Oshu One-Eyed Dragon Date Masamune? Your Majesty, the Demon King who heals love, a soul from another world, this is my real name." Makoto Takahashi took out a notebook from his arms and raised it in front of everyone. "So don't be delusional and try to find something in this notebook. Write my name on it to kill me, because I don't belong to this world. So this notebook used by the god of death cannot kill me." The interview only started for a while, but Haruka Sato felt extremely tired. What kind of person is this Phoenix Academy fierce person in front of me? Why is it so difficult to communicate? I heard that cartoonists have responsible editors. I wonder who the responsible editor of the Phoenix Institute is. He can face such a person for a long time. Thinking about it makes Sato Haruka admire him. Ahaha, Phoenix Academy teacher is really humorous. Haruka Sato smiled awkwardly, with an unnatural look on his face. She deliberately turned her head away from Takahashi Makoto and turned to face the audience. I believe everyone is curious why the manga of Mr. Kyumaru from the Phoenix Academy caused such a big incident in society. Let's watch it now. To see how things started, start with this post. On the big screen behind him, Taro Koizumi's original post on the internet appeared. Haruka Sato was explaining while secretly observing Makoto Takahashi's expression, but he was a little surprised. Makoto Takahashi had a very strange smile on his face. As if he had thought of something fun, his reaction to the exclamations from the audience was too calm. So, Mr. Phoenix Academy, what do you think about this post on the internet? Haruka Sato looked at Makoto Takahashi's indifferent expression and felt a little unable to control the scene, so he decisively brought the topic back to Makoto Takahashi. Is the real situation really the same as what Mr. Taro Koizumi wrote? Tisk, 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 is this the truth you have? The smile on Takahashi Makoto's face made some Haruka Sato uneasy. Just when Sato Haruka wanted to say something, Takahashi Makoto suppressed the smile on his face and shook his head helplessly. I'm just a cartoonist. Huh? What does Mr. Phoenix Academy mean by this? Can you explain it in detail? Sato Haruka was a little confused when he heard Takahashi Makoto's answer. The audience also looked at Takahashi curiously. Chen, waiting for his explanation. It is the duty of the king to educate his subjects. It is the responsibility of parents to educate their children. Makoto Takahashi stood up, walked to the stage, looked at the audience coldly, and sneered, huh? It's the responsibility of a cartoonist, just draw interesting cartoons. As for saving the world and educating the people, hey, have you made a mistake? Cartoonists are not that great. What if the whole world has fallen to the point where it needs cartoonists? If we use comics to educate and save, then let this world be completely destroyed. Teacher from the Phoenix Institute, this is your speech. Haruka Sato tried to interrupt Makoto Takahashi's speech, but Makoto Takahashi, who was immune to all states and was overflowing with madness, remained unmoved at all. People fall because of the temptation of the world. Is this a wrong world? If this is true, people living in this world are also wrong existences. Makoto Takahashi looked at the audience with a sad face. Someone, is it the fault of the person who sells the knife or the person who makes the knife? Since you support Taro Ant's point of view, please stand up and answer me, who is at fault? Listening to Takahashi Makoto's question and answer, Sato Haruka and the audience frowned and did not give an answer immediately. Audiences who previously supported Taro Koizumi's views are now beginning to reflect. Although Makoto Takahashi's metaphor is a bit far-fetched, it is indeed true. Creatures like human beings are so hypocritical, Makoto Takahashi snorted, attracting the attention of the audience. You know the answer, but you refuse to agree. In that case, why don't you just give it a try? Those hidden truths. Sabas-chan, I'll leave the rest to you. Yes, my lord. As Sebastian's voice suddenly sounded from behind the scenes, a video of a man making a phone call appeared on the big screen at the same time. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist Mao. Chapter 88. Chapter 88. It's all just. Isn't this person Taro Koizumi? Who are you talking to on the phone? Looking at the man on the phone on the big screen, the sharp-eyed audience immediately recognized him. As the video played, the audience gradually understood the truth of the matter. It turns out that Taro Koizumi tried to blackmail Makoto Takahashi, but after being rejected by Makoto Takahashi, he started spreading rumors and discrediting Makoto Takahashi. As for those experts and professors who suddenly jumped out, except for a few who were following the trend, the rest were either caught by Taro Koizumi and coerced into participating in this matter, or they were the same as Taro Koizumi because of their own moral problems. He belongs to the same group, and after Taro Koizumi promised high benefits, he joined this army to conquer the Phoenix Academy's murderous master. Chenben was looking at the big screen in the corner of his mouth twitched a little, and the smile on his face became a little stiff. To be honest, he was shocked when he first saw this video. This kind of shooting without anyone noticing is not something that just anyone can do. Thinking of the seemingly gentle and harmless housekeeper next to Takahashi Makoto, Chenben felt inexplicably frightened. That's it? The power of the world, Makoto Takahashi suddenly shouted, and Sebastian stopped the video in cooperation. The audience's eyes immediately focused on Takahashi Makoto again, but many of them lowered their heads in shame, not daring to look directly at Takahashi Makoto. It seems that everyone did misunderstand you before, Mr. Kuma from the Phoenix Academy. Haruka Sato looked a little embarrassed. She didn't like Makoto Takahashi, who behaved differently than ordinary people, but after watching the video, at least she didn't hate Takahashi as much as before. Sincere. But after seeing this video, Haruka Sato had a headache. Because according to the request of Daihi Society, this interview program was originally intended to avenge the Phoenix Academy murderer and his comics. However, the program was not even halfway through, and the development of the entire incident was beyond her control. This made Sato Haruka a little helpless and could only bring the topic back to Takahashi Makoto. I wonder, Mr. Phoenix Academy Kuma, what do you want to say after everyone watches this video? Look up, you ignorant people. You are not guilty of any crime in this incident. Makoto Takahashi cooperated with Haruka Sato this time, but is this kind of title really manly? Makoto Takahashi noticed the twitching corners of Yoshida's mouth in the audience, a smirk appeared on his face, and he nodded gently. This kind of response was like a proud devil. You are not guilty, because the truth is always in the hands of a few people. Human beings themselves are ignorant existences. Hypocrisy and vanity are the unchangeable original sins of human beings. There is nothing wrong with greed, arrogance, but it is unforgivable. Just like what Taro and the ants did before, it is an unforgivable arrogance. Taking the high ground of morality and ethics, blaming others for their mistakes and excluding dissidents is not something humans have done in history. Since some ants are trying to challenge the majesty of the Demon King, then, the magic card brainwashing is activated. When Yoshida heard Takahashi Makoto say this, the corner of his mouth twitched a little, and he shook his head helplessly. Takahashi Makoto's current appearance seems to have started a mode called blackening. The definition of comics itself is just a pastime in your spare time, Makoto Takahashi said in a tone that was a bit hateful, and as if talking to himself, he slowly narrated, "Since when did comics become popular among you? Given the responsibility of guiding education? This heavy burden has restricted the wings of comics and the dream of comics flying freely. Comics can infect people and make them cry. That is because of the readers themselves and the stories created by the cartoonists. Which resonates with the soul. The content of comics affects the physical and mental health of the next generation. People under my rule, think about it carefully. If the content of comics can affect people's hearts so easily, then the world has long fallen into the hands of our cartoonists. Look. It is really selfish to say that comics have a bad influence on the next generation. If the comics are not good or boring, it is indeed the fault of the cartoonist. But the failure of guiding and educating the next generation is not only a failure to reflect on it. Instead of taking responsibility for oneself, all the mistakes are placed on the comics and the cartoonists. This kind of selfish approach is indeed the worst nature of human beings. Makoto Takahashi's sarcastic remarks made many viewers at the scene and in front of the TV begin to reflect. However, Makoto Takahashi did not give the audience much time to think. The smile on his face broke a little, and his expression became a little ferocious, as if some kind of restrictive seal that had been suppressed for a long time had been released. Those people who are in cahoots with Taro's ants only have a superficial understanding of comics, but they are talking nonsense without restraint. People, who on earth gave you such courage? As the original author of the comics, I have no explanation was given, but you had no scruples and began to misinterpret and distort my work without authorization. Since you have activated the taunting skill, you have to withstand His Majesty the Demon King's attack. Since you dare to openly provoke, you have to be prepared to be killed. Wait, do you want to give it a try? Hearing what Makoto Takahashi said, the experts and professors who had previously participated in the crusade against the murderous Phoenix Academy became a little uneasy. Listening to Takahashi Makoto's tone, it seems that he doesn't intend to give up. Regarding Taro Koizumi's secretly filmed video, many people are now feeling scared. Most of the experts and professors inspired by Taro Koizumi have ulterior secrets. Many people shudder when they think of Takahashi Makoto's methods. It's all ignorant people like you who caused this boring farce and delayed Gumi's time to kill the Black Flame King. According to the rules on the battlefield, anyone who delays the fight will be punished. Takahashi, when Cheng thought about this, he felt angry. Without any scruples about the live broadcast, he directly launched a declaration of war to his new wife Eiji. King of Black Flame, don't think that if something like this happens, you can reverse the fate of defeat. King of Black Flame, are you watching the live broadcast? I declare here that you will definitely fail. This is fate, this is truth, this is the only law in the world. Because your opponent is the arrogant Demon King, the Phoenix Academy. Oh, is that so? It seems that I have been completely underestimated. Wow. Crow Army. Impact. Fight. Eiji, who was watching the live broadcast, had a look of anticipation on his face, jumped up and stood on the chair on his back. He danced and performed a series of difficult movements in conjunction with the strange screams coming from his mouth. Then, come here, His Majesty the Demon King who is full of madness, Mr. Jishin from the Phoenix Academy. Let us fight to the fullest. It's obviously just a simple story, so you can understand it without authorization, but it has led the people under my rule to embark on the path of rebellion, and made the comic bear an existence that it shouldn't have to bear. You really have to destroy the comic to be willing to do so. Is he obviously a hero who implements love and healing, but he is slandered and slandered by you to become the world-destroying Demon King? That's fine. Makoto Takahashi laughed, the expression on his face was completely broken. Casually pulling off the blindfold on his face, then in order to answer your call, let darkness fall. I will transform into a vengeful evil ghost, a desperate Demon King. After I kill all the gods, I will let this world, falling into the never-ending darkness. Whether you regret it or despair, you must remember one thing, it is not you who is wrong, but the world. After Makoto Takahashi finished speaking, he ignored Haruka Sato next to him and turned around directly to walk backstage. Sebastian, who was already waiting there, raised his lips slightly, bowed slightly, and handed over Makoto Takahashi's clothes. Let's go, Sebas-chan. After Takahashi Makoto finished changing his clothes, he readjusted the blindfold on his face, and the smile on his face gradually faded. Go back to the Demon King's castle and convene a campaign to conquer the Black Flame King. Let's meet. Yes, Master. Sebastian followed behind Makoto Takahashi, with a playful smile on his face, and seemed to give a kind reminder, then I want to talk to Mr. Chen Ben about the talk show. Humph. What a boring farce, Makoto Takahashi snorted and complained with some dissatisfaction. Obviously that video can explain everything, but we still waste time on this scene. Human beings are really troublesome creature. Although this party I have been looking forward to for a long time is somewhat enjoyable, it does not have the effect I expected. Sabas-chan, I will leave the rest to you. I understand. Seeing Takahashi Makoto walk out of the room, Sebastian saluted respectfully, and the smile on his face became even stronger. Then, Mr. Chen Ben, please come out. Although I understand your behavior of eavesdropping, I hope you can be more calm next time. Tisk, 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 you're really awesome, Sebastian. Chen Ben slowly walked out of the compartment, looked at Sebastian with curiosity, and asked with some doubts, can I ask, what are you? Who is it? Although I am not very knowledgeable about some things, I still know something about it. For example, that video is not something that ordinary people can easily get. Oh, doesn't Mr. Chen Ben know? Sebastian bowed slightly, and after saluting respectfully to Chen Ben, a playful smile appeared on his face. As the young master's housekeeper, he can do even this little thing. How can I do it? Just a butler? The look on Chen Ben's face became even more confused. Just when he was about to say something, he saw Sebastian's cold eyes. The look with no pity for life made Chen Ben suddenly feel a chill, and he struggled to he swallowed and swallowed what he wanted to say, and his body unconsciously took a few steps back. Sabas-chan, now is not the time to dawdle. Makoto Takahashi's voice came from outside the door. Forget it for today, let's talk about recruiting subordinates another day. Teasing the little mouse hiding in the dark, let's talk about this later when we have a chance. Yes, master. Sebastian smiled slightly at Chen Ben, turned around and left. Hey, what's going on with this master and this servant? After Sebastian left, Chen Ben lit up a cigarette with some trembling. What was that feeling just now? The two of them, is he really a devil? This kind of joke is not funny at all. You cooperated well today, thank you for your hard work, Sebastian. Makoto Takahashi sat in the back seat of the car, his eyes full of approval. Although Grandpa told me something about you, I didn't expect that. Your acting skills are really top-notch. Master, you are exaggerating. Sebastian's faint smile can be seen in the rearview mirror. I'm just a butler. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 89. After Makoto Takahashi revealed all the hidden truths in the talk show, many people were looking forward to the follow-up development. However, Makoto Takahashi did not take any action. Since his high-profile appearance in the talk show after leaving the body, he suddenly disappeared from the public eye. The more you want to hide it, the more it will arouse people's curiosity. People were eager to know the development of the matter, so they began to inquire about the murderous events of the Phoenix Academy. As a cartoonist, the more your name is mentioned, the easier it is for the related works to be noticed. Many people who didn't care about comics before started to read comics after this incident. The ones they paid attention to were naturally the works of Makoto Takahashi. The sales volume of the last issue of Young Jump suddenly increased significantly on Sunday. The previously released single volumes of DN and Rebellion have once again experienced a sales boom. Many far-sighted bookstore owners had already foreseen this situation when they saw the talk show before, and took advantage of this opportunity to make another fortune. Monday is the release date of Shonen Jump. Although the rankings of the last issue of Full Steel and Higurashi dropped, Yoshida is full of confidence in these two comics, especially Full Steel. You need to know the content of the sentence, but it's a duel between Edward and Gleed. Especially the comic in the last chapter only tells how Edward thought of counter-attacking Gleed. Although many metal fans are discussing it on the internet, no one can guess it. Because Gleed is too powerful. After Qianbo bought the new Young Junk, he immediately turned to the page of the serial Steel Refining. After seeing the publication of the new chapter Steel Refining, Qianbo finally breathed a sigh of relief, and his nervous heart finally relaxed. When Qianbo saw Taro Koizumi's post before, he became a little worried about the murderous nature of the Phoenix Academy. Putting aside whether Taro Koizumi's views are correct or not, Qianbo is very worried that the Phoenix Academy's murderous comics will be banned directly. After all, if the Phoenix Academy's murderous comics really aroused bad reviews and aroused condemnation from all walks of life, the comics would not be cut in half but directly banned. Qianbo also watched the talk show on Saturday. While he was shocked by the truth behind the scenes, he was also a little speechless about the author of Phoenix Academy Fierce. That kind of tone and way of speaking, as well as a series of offline behaviors, are typical of a boy with Shuyunibu. However, seeing that Steel Refining was not banned, Qianbo was finally relieved. To be honest, Qianbo liked the more meat-selling works that have appeared recently, but at first he felt a little bored after watching them more. Steel is different. Materials such as war and human body refining are added to the comic, making the theme of the comic a bit heavy. Edward was held by Gleed with one hand. Edward thought of a way to counterattack, clasping his hands together to activate alchemy. The comic series of the previous chapter ends here, but what is Edward's method? This issue has been bothering Qianbo this week. According to the development of Steel Refining, the super expansion of the protagonist's aura of invincibility shouldn't happen, right? Qianbo began to read the comic while imagining without permission, speaking of which, the alchemist's battle is really gorgeous. It's obviously just innocent alchemy, but when you fight, it's like watching a magician fight. In the comics, Edward clasped his hands together, surrounded by lightning, then grabbed Gleed's arm tightly, and broke away. Then Edward refined his right hand into an iron fist, and had a head-on duel with Gleed, and the fists collided with each other. Together. Is Edward a fool? Seeing Edward's reckless behavior, Qianbo had a dark look on his face. Obviously Gleed has said before that his body is like a diamond and is called the strongest shield, but Edward still has to go head-to-head with the opponent. He is really too passionate. But the next scene shocked Qianbo. The comic specifically shows a scene. After the two fists collided, Edward's mechanical arm was not damaged. Instead, it covered Gleed's arm defense, which was broken by Edward with one blow. How is this possible? Edward's fighting power must be cheating, like Gleed. Qianbo was extremely surprised. In the comic, after Gleed's arm recovered, he scratched the ground thorn next to him, proving that his ability had not failed, but in reality, Qianbo looked through the previous comics again and found that there was no page jump occurs. With curiosity, Qianbo continued to read and discovered a strange phenomenon. Every time before Edward had a head-on confrontation with Gleed, he would clasp his hands together, activate an alchemy spell, and then hit Gleed's body. The first attack had no effect, but the next attack, hitting the same location, produced extremely powerful destructive power. If you think about it carefully, the truth is actually very simple. Artificial people are also human bodies, so 1/3 of the materials that make up the body are carbon elements. Depending on the molecular structure, carbon elements can form everything from pencil lead to diamonds weight for different hardnesses. As long as you understand this, you will enter the field of alchemy. Edward wiped the blood from his mouth and entered the battle with Gleed again, and I discovered one more thing: you can't regeneration and hardening at the same time. At first I thought you were just a hot-blooded and reckless brat. After Gleed's injuries recovered again, he pointed out Edward's disadvantages, but with a body like yours, how many times can you carry out such attacks? What Gleed said was not wrong. The current Edward. Seeing this, Qianbo nodded in agreement. Gleed was right. In the comics, Edward was scarred, even though Gleed was found his weakness seemed to give him the upper hand in the battle, but his own injuries wiped out this advantage. If it continued any longer, Edward would definitely lose. Qianbo couldn't wait to turn to the next page, and now he was completely immersed in the comic. Although he knew that the protagonist of the comic would not die, Qianbo was really curious about how Edward would get out of this predicament. "Okay, excuse me, Edward's master Ismai suddenly intervened in the war with a young gangster. Moreover, the sudden appearance of Master Ismai did not help Edward. Instead, he threw the little gangster towards Edward. The impact was so powerful that it even made a huge dent in the wall. Edward didn't complain, but kept apologizing to Ismai. Qianbo's mouth twitched when he saw it. He still had fresh memories of this woman Ismai. In the previous comics, Ismai was very domineering when he appeared on the stage. Especially when someone asked her name, she put her hands on her hips and said boldly, "I'm just a housewife passing by chance," and then vomited blood. As long as Ismai is mentioned, the two Edward brothers will hug each other and their bodies will keep shaking. The fear of Ismai comes from the shadow left over from their childhood learning alchemy. This Glide is really. Glide expressed great disdain for Ismai, and even uttered wild words, saying that he would not hit women. When Qianbo saw this, he couldn't help complaining, "He will definitely be beaten badly, right?" But teacher Ismai's body. The next plot was just as Qianbo had guessed. The unsuspecting Grid was knocked down by Ismai with a single blow. This once again fully demonstrated the power of Ismai. And after Ismai revealed that she was an ordinary housewife, she started vomiting blood again. Seeing this scene, Qianbo smiled knowingly, it really unfolded like this. But the next plot was somewhat beyond Qianbo's expectations. Glede fled without a fight, which was a bit weird, and people from the army also suddenly appeared, making the development of the comic confusing. When Qianbo was curious, he discovered that the comic suddenly switched to Al's side. The president appears unexpectedly. Glede, who had tracked down Al, didn't pay too much attention when facing the president. He stepped forward to provoke, but his right hand was cut off by the president with a sword. What follows is a fight in which the president completely tortures Glede. Glede, who seemed extremely powerful before, was completely powerless in front of the president. The one-eyed president holding two swords easily subdued Glede. "Let me go, what kind of monster is this president?" Seeing this, Qianbo was completely surprised. Glede, who Edward had fought so hard before, was subdued so easily. With the president's fighting power, those previous alchemists were completely outclassed. "As for me, I don't have the strongest shield like you, nor the strongest spear that penetrates everything." The swords in the president's hands pierced Glede's neck in a staggered way, and he slowly talked about seemingly unrelated things. "However, I was able to survive amidst the hail of bullets and achieve great feats to become the president. Do you know why?" Qianbo was also very curious about what the president said. The president, who always seemed to be smiling before, actually had such a strong fighting power, which shocked him. However, on the next page of the comic, a close-up shot of the president's face surprised Qianbo even more. The president's right eye, which was wearing an eye patch, slowly opened because the eye patch came off. In the position of the eyeball, there was a winged Ouroboros, with two equilateral triangles superimposed on each other in the center. This tattoo, the president, is actually an artificial human being. Seeing this familiar tattoo, Qianbo stood up suddenly. With curiosity and doubt in his heart, he turned to the next page and found that this issue of the serialization of steel refining also ended here, which made Qianbo extremely angry. Is this really the case again? I'm stuck at this critical moment again. I really hate the Phoenix Academy teacher's bad taste. There are not a few people who have the same idea as Qianbo. Regarding Makoto Takahashi's bad taste, every comic fan who watched Metal Steel cursed indignantly. Sneeze, Makoto Takahashi rubbed his nose in confusion, stopped the brush in his hand, and turned to look out the window. That's right, This feeling is. Chen, have you caught a cold? It's really rare. Yoshida put down the drawing in his hand and comforted Takahashi Makoto. Although drawing comics is very important, the body is the foundation of everything. But having said that, His Majesty the Demon King also will you catch a cold? Humph. This is not a cold, but a curse full of resentment. No matter whether it is a demon king or a monster, this curse cannot be exempted. Let me think about the things that have offended people recently. Makoto Takahashi was a little disdainful. Looking at Yoshida, he frowned and meditated for a moment, then sighed with a self-defeating look on his face. It seems like you have done too much. But when this kind of curse strikes, good things usually happen afterward. Sure enough, Ogata Slime Elite wants to a warning of death. Have you started your career as a fortune teller? After having too much contact with Makoto Takahashi, Yoshida also learned some normal communication methods with Tsuyuni. My beloved cat, although I want to boast that you have made progress, the answer is wrong. Takahashi Makoto looked at Yoshida with a smug smile on his face. I have only mastered the art of prophecy, a rare skill. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do SD Email. Chapter 90. The Myanliu chapter of Higurashi was serialized for a total of 3 months. Although the ending of the Watanaru chapter was somewhat affected by the incident with Taro Koizumi, the Wataryu chapter published in the previous issue of Shonen Jump still ended somewhat imperfectly. Starting from this new issue, Han Sakata will enter the story of Kongsha chapter. When the Higurashi cries, one of the brothers from the Kongsha chapter. I would like to use this chapter to predict the future of a certain slime elite dead sister. Every reader who watches Higurashi will find that when Higurashi was serialized, Makoto Takahashi specially added the words of appreciation next to the title. Generally speaking, many physical novel authors prefer to do this kind of thing, but it is still relatively rare for cartoonists to do this kind of thing. Takahashi Makoto and Yoshida discussed this matter before, but Yoshida didn't pay too much attention and just asked Takahashi Makoto not to write too long. The story of the Sosaku chapter of Higurashi unfolds with Satoko Hojo as the central character, the widow of a dam project promoter couple who died in an accident. The biggest feature of the Kongsha chapter is that the villain in this chapter is said to be the male protagonist Kiyaki Mahara. When Makoto Takahashi read the Kongsha chapter, he completely felt a subversion of the characters. As the male protagonist, Maeda Kiyaki has become the villain this time. Whether in novels, comics, or movies, this situation generally does not happen, but in the Kongsha arc, he did so, and the effect is very good. I have to say that the plot development of the Haunting chapter is completely different from that of the previous 2 chapters, which keeps the tension of the story until the last moment. It goes without saying that Satoko is miserable, and it goes without saying whether Kiyaki has a deep love for Satoko, or whether he just brought him into enlightenment. But at the end of the story, it was really heartbreaking to see Satoko push Kiyaki off the suspension bridge. The ability to create a thrilling atmosphere in the killing chapter is undoubtedly first-rate. When Takahashi Makoto read this article, he was so impressed, especially the depressing murder process and Kiyaki's changes in mentality, which were very detailed. Moreover, when Satoko pushed Kiyaki off the suspension bridge, Kiyaki's inner monologue in the process of falling suspected that he was the cause of this deformed and miserable world can also be regarded as laying the foundation for Kiyaki's battle with Hado Reina in the crime-destroying chapter of Explanation Foreshadowing. Makoto Takahashi even believes that among the first 3 chapters of Higurashi, the Haunting chapter is definitely the most amazing one. Although this is said, due to the space limit of comic serialization, what readers saw at the beginning was just a calm daily life comic. Many comic fans who had read Hanging Before curled their lips in disdain at this development. When I saw the Kongsha chapter, I knew that a new story would begin again, and the character's death would happen again. Yang Wei, who had finished reading this serial, appeared on the internet again and opened a gambling game frantically. I was lucky enough to get in touch with the Phoenix Academy's murderer before. Regarding the new chapter of the Kongsha chapter, the Phoenix Academy said that people who like Hansekata will enjoy a bloody feast. This is the original words of the Phoenix Academy. I was also surprised when I heard it. But since the Phoenix Academy said it was a bloody feast, a lot of people would definitely die. So let us guess how many people will die in the Kongsha chapter. Nani, the poster has contacted the Phoenix Academy. You can't be lying, right? But according to the Phoenix Academy's urination, the number of deaths in the previous 2 chapters has been increasing. This time it should be 6 characters, right? 6 is too few. That ferocious Chuyunibu from the Phoenix Academy has already exceeded 6 people before. I am going to go against the grain this time. At least more than 10 people will die this time. 20 people. What's the previous title? I can feel the overwhelming resentment of the Phoenix Academy. Slime Elite Dead Sister Controller. Could this character be one of the brothers of the Phoenix Academy's lover class exists, right? Huh. Who else besides Ogata Slime? Makoto Takahashi looked at this post on the internet with some resentment on his face. He closed the computer and looked at Yoshida with a gloomy face. My beloved cat, you was the reason why I was angrily wailing on the phone before, because Dark decided that after losing, his soul would be taken away. What's going on with this acceptance speech? Yoshida held the sample issue of Shounen Jump with a playful anger on his face, and roared dissatisfied at Makoto Takahashi. This is different from what you said before. You just said before that you wanted to write something to tell Ogata AG about the relationship between brothers and sisters. And that was not how you wrote it before when you gave it to me. Because I activated the prophecy technique before, I saw the future of this world. Makoto Takahashi was a little depressed and looked out the window melancholy. His tone was completely dominated by strong anger. Ogata, she the Slime Elite will be my most despicable enemy on the road to dominating the world. When I am about to take over the world, that Slime Elite will definitely take Princess Rina as a hostage to coerce me. So, what's going on with this inexplicable development? Yoshida interrupted Makoto Takahashi without the slightest politeness. What we are discussing now is about comics. Don't change the subject on purpose. Hey, did you fail? Makoto Takahashi turned to look at the comics on the table and once again used his magical skill of changing the topic. The Kongsha chapter has just started serialization. It is estimated that it will take 3 months to complete the serialization, and then there will be more free time after that. It is estimated that the completion of the chapter will take 2 months. Based on this calculation, Higurashi will be over in about half a year. Oh? Have you already thought about it? Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi in surprise. This is the first time Makoto Takahashi has seriously explained the direction of the manga since the serialization. Although Makoto Takahashi has already drawn some of the ending story of Higurashi before, Yoshida has read it many times and feels that there are still many things that have not been explained clearly. In other words, Higurashi will end in half a year. Finished? Tisk tisk tisk, my beloved cat can become a miraculous existence, but it is not as simple as you think. A trace of heat flashed in Takahashi Makoto's eyes. The current Higurashi is just the beginning of the solution. In half a year, I will be admitted to the Royal College of Higher Education and start to explore the roots. When I master the roots of the world, I will then carry out various face-slapping activities on many people named Aotian, and then build a harmonious and loving crystal palace. After meeting these 3 conditions, I will release the swastika of Hansekata and let the miracle of God come to the world. Is there no problem with you saying that? Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi teasingly. I didn't talk about those things before, but building the crystal palace and so on, I guess after Rina-chan finds out, she will let you feel the cruelty of hell. Humph. My beloved cat, whose brain circuit is composed of the new Armstrong Swing Jet Armstrong cannon, the Crystal Palace is obviously guarded by the Dragon King, and it also seals the heaven-defying artifact Golden Cudgel. This is not the best for Princess Rina. A betrothal gift? Don't use your dirty thoughts to pollute my lofty ideals. As for the crystal palace you think of, it will lead to Rina-chan's darkening. Takahashi Makoto, looking at Yoshida with contempt, he imagined the scene of Rina turning black, holding a hatchet, standing on the bow of the ship. Takahashi Makoto suddenly slammed the table, and said expectantly, "Hey! Wait, Princess Rina is also very charming after turning dark. Rina is my princess, she is infinitely beautiful even in dark form." Looking at Makoto Takahashi, who was full of starry eyes and looking expectant, Yoshida decisively picked up the comic and continued the previous question. Unknowingly, Cheng changed the subject again. "What on earth are we going to do about this matter?" "Listen, I will only explain it once." Makoto Takahashi turned his head away with a look of displeasure and said angrily, "I am His Majesty the Demon King who heals love." With good intentions, at the beginning of the chapter, he vaguely mentioned Changsha. Whether you can understand the main plot of the chapter depends on the reader's qualifications. You must know that not everyone can practice martial arts as profound as Tathagata God's palm. "Are you sure you didn't deliberately provoke Ogata Agi again?" Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi suspiciously. "This, Do you need to provoke those kind of slime elites? The Demon King can kill thousands of them with one slap." "You think too much, my beloved cat." Makoto Takahashi faced Yoshida's direct attack on the soul. With deep eyes, he could not look at each other for more than 3 seconds, and turned his head to one side. "Well, that's basically the situation." Cheng, Takahashi Makoto, Phoenix Academy Fierce, do you dare to look me in the eyes and talk to me seriously? Yoshida changed his names 3 times in a row, and his tone became higher and higher, but Takahashi Makoto just said disdainfully. I looked at Yoshida, then picked up the brush on the table and started drawing comics. Completely immune to the coercion emanating from Yoshida, and the absolute suppression of the dependent cats have no ability to resist the Demon King, Makoto Takahashi only told Yoshida through his own actions. "Okay, I get it." Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi, who ignored him and sat helplessly on the sofa, his tone extremely disappointed. "But when you want to do these things in the future, please be sure to discuss it with me first." Yes, I know." Makoto Takahashi gave a thumbs up, showing his white teeth. It seems that the toothpaste he used was Colgate. After Makoto Takahashi finished this action, he turned around and took off the blindfold on his face, and began to quickly draw the comic storyboard on the manuscript paper, never stopping for a moment. Then, back to the battle process. "My turn. Let's break out. My little universe. It's going to happen, in order to penetrate." "I'm very sorry, Mr. Yoshida, the young master will start drawing comics now." Yoshida is used to the sudden appearance of Sebastian. The first time he saw Saba suddenly appearing, Yoshida was shocked. Once the young master enters that state, he will inevitably be a little rude when treating guests. "I have been tidying up the room before, and the hospitality was not good. Please forgive me. Cheng, after this week's results come out, I will come to you." Yoshida greeted Takahashi Makoto loudly before leaving, but seeing that Takahashi Makoto still did not stop the brush in his hand, Yoshida knew that what you said was in vain. "Hey. The only good thing about Aiken is that he is very focused when drawing comics." "Then, please go slowly, Mr. Yoshida." Sebastian opened the door for Yoshida politely, with a playful smile on his face. "I will truthfully tell the young master everything you said before. Then, goodbye, Mr. Yoshida." Sebastian, this." When Yoshida was still about to explain something, Sebastian closed the door.